General Marcus Harrison had seen enough new recruits to know trouble when it walked through his door. The morning sun cast long shadows across the military academy's main courtyard as he reviewed the day's roster from his office window. Another batch of eager young soldiers, all convinced they would change the world with their determination and fresh training. Elena Vasquez stood among them, her small frame barely visible in the standard-issue uniform that seemed 2 sizes too large. At barely 5 feet tall and weighing no more than 110 pounds, she looked like a strong wind might blow her away. The other recruits towered over her, their broad shoulders and confident stances making her appear even smaller by comparison. Harrison shook his head as he watched the morning formation. The military had been pushing for more diversity, more inclusion, but this seemed ridiculous. What could this tiny woman possibly contribute to an elite sniper unit? He had spent 30 years building his reputation as one of the most demanding trainers in the armed forces. His program had produced some of the finest marksmen in military history, soldiers who could take down targets from distances that seemed impossible to the average person. The academy's shooting range was Harrison's pride and joy. State-of-the-art equipment, targets that could be positioned at distances up to 4,000 meters, and environmental chambers that could simulate any weather condition a sniper might face in the field. He had designed every aspect of the facility himself, drawing from decades of combat experience and training expertise. Elena walked quietly behind the group as they toured the facilities. While other recruits asked questions about the advanced scopes and rifle specifications, she remained silent, her dark eyes taking in every detail. Harrison noticed her studying the wind measurement equipment with unusual intensity, but dismissed it as nervous curiosity from someone clearly out of her depth. The first week of training was designed to weed out those who lacked the mental fortitude for precision shooting. Physical strength mattered, but mental discipline was everything. Harrison had seen muscular soldiers crumble under the pressure of making a shot that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. During classroom sessions, Elena sat in the back row, taking notes while Harrison explained the complex mathematics of long-range shooting. Factors like bullet drop, wind drift, temperature variations, and atmospheric pressure all played crucial roles in accuracy. Most recruits struggled with these concepts, their eyes glazing over as Harrison covered advanced ballistics calculations. The practical exercises began with basic marksmanship at short distances. Standard targets at 100 meters, then gradually increasing to longer ranges. Elena's performance was adequate but unremarkable. She hit the targets consistently, showing good fundamental shooting techniques, but nothing that would distinguish her from dozens of other competent shooters Harrison had trained over the years. What bothered Harrison was her attitude. While other recruits celebrated successful shots or showed frustration after misses, Elena remained emotionally neutral. She would fire, observe the impact, make minor adjustments to her position or scope settings, and fire again. No celebration, no visible disappointment, just methodical consistency. Her physical training scores were among the lowest in the class. She struggled through the endurance runs, barely meeting minimum standards for push-ups and pull-ups, and looked exhausted after carrying the heavy sniper rifle and equipment during field exercises. Harrison began to wonder why she had even been accepted into the program. The other recruits seemed to share his skepticism. During breaks, Elena would sit alone, cleaning her equipment or reviewing training materials while her classmates socialized and compared their shooting performance. Some made subtle jokes about her size and apparent physical limitations, though never directly to her face. 3 weeks into the program, Harrison decided to conduct individual assessments. Each recruit would demonstrate their skills at increasingly challenging distances, starting at 300 meters and working up to 800 meters. This would separate the naturally gifted marksmen from those who were simply going through the motions. Elena's turn came on a particularly windy afternoon. The flags around the range snapped and twisted as gusts reached 15 miles per hour, creating challenging conditions for accurate shooting. Harrison expected her to struggle with the wind calculations, possibly failing to hit the target entirely at longer distances. She took her position behind the rifle, adjusting the bipod legs and settling into a comfortable shooting stance. Her breathing became slow and controlled as she peered through the scope, studying the target 600 meters downrange. The wind was gusting from the left, requiring precise calculations to compensate for bullet drift. Elena fired 5 shots in succession, each separated by approximately 30 seconds. Harrison watched through his spotting scope as each bullet struck within the target's scoring rings. Not perfect shots, but solid hits that demonstrated competent marksmanship skills. As the distance increased to 800 meters, the challenge became significantly more difficult. At this range, even experienced snipers sometimes struggled to maintain accuracy, especially in windy conditions. Harrison expected Elena to show signs of pressure, perhaps rushing her shots or becoming visibly frustrated with misses. Instead, she seemed to become more focused. Her movements became even more deliberate, her breathing more controlled. She spent additional time studying the wind flags and grass movement before each shot, making minute adjustments to her scope settings between rounds. When the scoring targets were retrieved, Elena had achieved respectable results. Not the best in the class, but far from the worst. Harrison found himself slightly surprised by her consistency, though he attributed it more to luck and favorable wind conditions than genuine skill. That evening, as Harrison reviewed the day's performance records in his office, he made notes about each recruit's potential. Next to Elena's name, he wrote adequate technical skills, questionable physical capabilities, likely unsuitable for advanced training. He had no idea that his assessment was about to be proven dramatically wrong. The advanced training phase began in the 4th week, and Harrison immediately noticed a change in the group dynamic. Half of the original recruits had been eliminated, leaving only the most promising candidates. The remaining soldiers showed increased confidence, knowing they had survived the initial screening process. Elena continued to blend into the background, her quiet demeanor unchanged despite making it through the first elimination round. Harrison still questioned the decision to advance her, but Academy policy required him to give every qualified recruit a fair opportunity to prove themselves at longer ranges. The new training regimen focused on extreme long-range shooting, starting at 1,000 meters and eventually progressing to distances beyond 2,000 meters. At these ranges, environmental factors became exponentially more important, and even tiny errors in calculation or technique could result in complete misses. Harrison introduced advanced concepts like the Coriolis effect, which accounted for the Earth's rotation affecting bullet trajectory over extremely long distances. Most recruits found these calculations overwhelming, relying heavily on ballistic computers and reference charts to make the necessary adjustments. Elena approached these lessons differently than her classmates. While others frantically scribbled notes and asked repeated questions about the mathematical formulas, she seemed to absorb the information quietly, occasionally asking precise technical questions that surprised Harrison with their depth and understanding. During a particularly challenging lesson on atmospheric pressure variations, Elena raised her hand for the first time in weeks. "Sir, when calculating density altitude at extreme ranges, should we prioritize real-time barometric readings over historical averages for the target area, especially in mountainous terrain where pressure systems can change rapidly?" Harrison paused, slightly taken aback by the sophistication of her question. It was exactly the type of consideration that separated competent shooters from true professionals. "That's correct, Vasquez. Real-time readings are always preferable when available, though field conditions don't always provide that luxury." Her classmates looked at her with newfound curiosity. The quiet recruit who struggled through physical training had just demonstrated a level of theoretical understanding that impressed even their demanding instructor. The first extreme range, practical exercise, took place at the Academy's remote high-altitude facility, designed to simulate challenging mountain environments where many sniper missions occurred. The thin air and unpredictable wind patterns created conditions that tested every aspect of a marksman's training. Targets were positioned at distances ranging from 1,200 to 1,800 meters. Each recruit would have 3 attempts at each distance with scoring based on accuracy and consistency rather than speed. Harrison expected significant struggles from most of the remaining candidates. The morning started poorly for several recruits. The combination of altitude, wind, and extreme distance proved overwhelming. Shots scattered widely around the targets, with some missing entirely despite careful preparation and calculation. Elena's turn came after lunch, when the wind had intensified and cloud cover was creating changing light conditions on the targets. Harrison watched skeptically as she took her position, spending several minutes studying the terrain between her position and the distant target. She made extensive notes in a small notebook, recording wind speed readings from multiple positions around the shooting platform. Her preparation time seemed excessive to Harrison, who valued efficiency as much as accuracy in his snipers. When Elena finally settled behind the rifle, her entire demeanor changed. The nervous energy that characterized her physical training sessions disappeared, replaced by an almost mechanical precision in her movements. She cycled through her breathing routine, adjusted her scope settings, and prepared for her first shot at 1,200 meters. The rifle's sharp crack echoed across the valley as Elena fired. Through his spotting scope, Harrison watched the bullet impact just outside the target's center ring. A solid hit at a challenging distance. Elena made minor adjustments and fired again, this time achieving a near-perfect center hit. Her third shot at 1,200 meters struck dead center, demonstrating not just accuracy but consistency under pressure. Harrison found himself paying closer attention as Elena prepared for the 1,500-meter target. The increased distance made environmental factors even more critical. A slight miscalculation in wind drift could result in a miss by several feet at this range. Elena spent additional time observing grass movement and dust patterns, gathering information about wind conditions along the bullet's entire flight path. Her first shot at 1,500 meters struck within the scoring rings, though not as precisely centered as her shorter-range efforts. Harrison expected her accuracy to degrade significantly at this distance, following the pattern he had observed with countless other recruits. Instead, Elena's second shot improved dramatically, striking much closer to the target center. Her third shot was nearly perfect, demonstrating an ability to make rapid adjustments and maintain accuracy under challenging conditions. As the group moved to the 1,800-meter targets, several recruits had already been eliminated for consistent misses at shorter ranges. The remaining candidates faced their greatest challenge yet, attempting to hit targets barely visible to the naked eye in conditions that would test the limits of their equipment and training. Elena's preparation became even more meticulous at this extreme distance. She consulted multiple reference charts, took detailed measurements of atmospheric conditions, and spent considerable time calculating bullet trajectory. Her methodical approach contrasted sharply with other recruits who seemed increasingly rushed and frustrated by the challenging conditions. When she finally fired, Harrison had to wait several seconds for the bullet to travel the enormous distance to the target. The impact appeared to be a solid hit, though precise scoring would require target retrieval at the end of the exercise. Elena's subsequent shots at 1,800 meters continued to find the target, maintaining a level of accuracy that surprised everyone observing the exercise. While other recruits celebrated single hits at this distance, Elena was achieving consistent results that suggested genuine long-range shooting ability. That evening, as the targets were scored and results compiled, Harrison found himself reconsidering his initial assessment of Elena's potential. Her performance at extreme ranges had been among the best in the class, achieved despite her obvious physical limitations and quiet demeanor. The pattern was becoming clear to Harrison, though he wasn't yet ready to fully acknowledge what he was seeing. Elena performed better as distances increased and conditions became more challenging. Rather than being overwhelmed by complexity, she seemed to thrive on the precise calculations and methodical approach required for extreme-range shooting. For the first time since training began, Harrison made a positive note in Elena's file, though he remained skeptical about her overall suitability for field operations where physical capabilities would be equally important to marksmanship skills. Week 6 brought the most demanding phase of sniper training, field exercises designed to simulate real combat conditions. Harrison had designed these scenarios based on his own combat experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, where snipers faced not only extreme shooting challenges but also the pressure of life-or-death situations, and the remaining 8 recruits were divided into pairs and given mission scenarios requiring them to infiltrate designated areas, establish concealed shooting positions, and engage multiple targets at various distances. Each team had 48 hours to complete their objectives while avoiding detection by opposing forces played by advanced training instructors. Elena was paired with Marcus Chen, a former Marine with impressive physical capabilities but inconsistent shooting performance. Harrison expected Chen to carry the team through the physical demands, while Elena might contribute her emerging marksmanship skills, though he remained doubtful about her ability to perform under the stress of simulated combat. The first scenario required teams to hike 12 miles through mountainous terrain carrying full equipment loads, establish a hidden observation post, and engage targets appearing at random intervals over a 24-hour period. The exercise tested endurance, fieldcraft, and the ability to maintain shooting accuracy, despite physical exhaustion and sleep deprivation. Elena struggled immediately with the physical demands. Her heavy equipment pack seemed to dwarf her small frame, and she fell behind the group during the initial approach march. Chen offered to carry additional gear, but Elena quietly declined, adjusting her pack straps and continuing the difficult hike at her own pace. Harrison monitored the exercise from the command post, tracking each team's progress through GPS monitors and periodic radio check-ins. Elena and Chen's team was consistently the slowest during movement phases, raising concerns about their ability to reach the designated position before the exercise timeline expired. What Harrison didn't anticipate was Elena's exceptional skill at fieldcraft and camouflage. When the teams reached their assigned areas and began establishing shooting positions, Elena demonstrated an almost intuitive understanding of terrain utilization and concealment techniques. While other teams built obvious hide sites that would have been easily detected by real enemies, Elena selected a position that was nearly invisible even to trained observers. She used natural vegetation and terrain features to create a shooting position that provided excellent fields of fire while maintaining complete concealment. Chen admitted later that he had been skeptical of Elena's position choice, thinking it was too restrictive and difficult to access quickly. However, as the exercise progressed, he realized the genius of her selection. Their position remained undetected throughout the entire scenario while other teams were repeatedly killed by opposing forces. The shooting portion of the exercise presented targets at distances ranging from 800 to 2,000 meters, appearing at unpredictable intervals and remaining visible for limited time periods. Successful engagement required rapid target acquisition, quick range estimation, and accurate first-shot hits under time pressure. Elena's performance during this phase was remarkable. She consistently achieved first-round hits on targets that other teams missed entirely or required multiple shots to engage successfully. Her ability to rapidly calculate range and environmental factors under pressure impressed even the exercise evaluators. On the second day of the exercise, weather conditions deteriorated significantly. Rain and gusty winds created challenging shooting conditions that pushed the limits of equipment and human capability. Several teams requested early termination due to the harsh conditions, but Elena and Chen continued the exercise. Harrison watched through binoculars as Elena engaged a particularly difficult target at 1,700 meters during heavy rain. The conditions would have challenged even experienced combat veterans, yet she achieved a clean hit on her first shot. Her technique remained consistent despite being soaked and exhausted from 24 hours in the field. The exercise concluded, with each team required to demonstrate their ability to extract from their positions without detection and reach a designated pickup point within a specified time limit. This phase tested their ability to move quietly through hostile territory while carrying all their equipment. Elena's small size became an advantage during the extraction phase. She moved through dense vegetation and rocky terrain with surprising stealth, often finding routes that larger team members couldn't navigate effectively. Chen later commented that following Elena's lead during the extraction made him realize how much noise he typically made during movement. When all teams reached the extraction point, Harrison conducted immediate debriefings to capture lessons learned while events were fresh in everyone's memory. Each team reported their experiences, challenges faced, and techniques that proved successful during the exercise. Elena's quiet demeanor returned during the debriefing sessions. She answered questions directly, but volunteered little additional information about her methods or decision-making process. Harrison found this frustrating, wanting to understand how she had achieved such consistent results under challenging conditions. Chen, however, was eager to share details about Elena's performance. He described her methodical approach to position selection, her ability to remain calm under pressure, and her uncanny accuracy at extreme ranges. His enthusiasm was obvious as he recounted specific shots Elena had made during adverse conditions. Other team members began to take notice of Elena's capabilities. The recruit, who had been dismissed as too small and weak for sniper training, was quietly demonstrating skills that surpassed most of her classmates. Conversations in the barracks began to include respectful references to her shooting ability. Harrison reviewed the exercise footage that evening, studying each team's performance in detail. The video evidence confirmed what he had observed during the live exercise. Elena had achieved the highest accuracy rates, maintained the best concealment discipline, and demonstrated tactical awareness that exceeded expectations for someone with her limited experience. The scoring for the field exercise placed Elena and Chen's team at the top of the class rankings. Their combination of stealth, accuracy, and mission completion had been exemplary despite Elena's obvious physical limitations during movement phases. For the first time since training began, Harrison started to question his assumptions about the physical requirements for effective sniper operations. Elena was proving that superior marksmanship skills and tactical thinking could compensate for physical limitations, at least in certain operational scenarios. That night, Harrison made extensive notes about Elena's performance, documenting specific examples of her exceptional shooting and fieldcraft abilities. He was beginning to realize that he might have seriously underestimated her potential as a sniper, though he remained uncertain about her suitability for all types of missions his graduates might face. The pattern was becoming undeniable. Elena performed at her best when challenges were greatest, when conditions were most demanding, and when precision mattered most. Harrison had never encountered a recruit with such an unusual combination of limitations and exceptional capabilities. The 7th week introduced psychological pressure testing, designed to evaluate how recruits performed under extreme stress conditions that simulated the mental demands of actual combat operations. Harrison considered this phase crucial for identifying candidates who possessed the mental fortitude required for life-or-death shooting decisions. The psychological evaluation included scenarios where recruits had to make rapid target identification decisions while under simulated enemy fire, maintain accuracy while subjected to loud noises and distracting stimuli, and demonstrate emotional stability during extended periods of isolation and sensory deprivation. Elena approached these challenges with the same quiet determination she had shown throughout training. While other recruits showed obvious signs of stress and frustration during the psychological testing, Elena maintained her characteristic calm demeanor, treating each challenge as another technical problem to be solved methodically. The first psychological test required recruits to engage targets while wearing headphones playing loud, chaotic sounds designed to simulate battlefield noise. Explosions, gunfire, and shouting created an audio environment that made concentration extremely difficult. Most recruits showed degraded performance under these conditions, their accuracy dropping significantly compared to quiet range sessions. Elena's performance actually improved under these stressful conditions. Her shots became more precise, her target engagement times decreased, and she maintained perfect situational awareness despite the distracting audio stimulation. Harrison observed that she seemed to enter a focused mental state that blocked out external interference completely. During debriefing after the audio stress test, Elena explained her approach in her typically concise manner. "I learned to use the noise as a metronome for my breathing rhythm. The chaos became predictable once I found the pattern within it." Harrison was struck by her unusual perspective on the challenge. While other recruits fought against the disruptive stimuli, Elena had found a way to incorporate it into her shooting technique, turning a handicap into an advantage. The isolation testing proved even more revealing about Elena's psychological makeup. Recruits were placed in small windowless chambers for 12-hour periods with minimal food and water, then required to engage precision targets immediately upon release. The combination of sensory deprivation and physical discomfort was designed to test mental resilience under adverse conditions. Most recruits emerged from isolation, testing visibly shaken, their shooting performance significantly degraded by the psychological stress. Some reported anxiety, claustrophobia, and difficulty concentrating on the shooting tasks that followed their confinement. Elena completed her isolation period and immediately moved to the shooting line, showing no visible effects from the 12 hours of sensory deprivation. Her first shots were as accurate as ever, suggesting that the psychological stress had not impacted her shooting ability at all. When asked about her experience during isolation, Elena's response was characteristically understated. I used the time to mentally rehearse shooting sequences and ballistic calculations. It was actually quite productive for training purposes. Harrison began to realize that Elena possessed an unusual psychological profile that made her exceptionally suited for sniper operations. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, maintain focus despite distractions, and find productive ways to utilize challenging conditions suggested mental capabilities that went far beyond her physical appearance. The final psychological test involved live-fire exercises where recruits had to make split-second decisions about target engagement while under time pressure. Targets appeared briefly at various distances, and recruits had to quickly determine range, calculate environmental factors, and achieve accurate hits before targets disappeared. This test eliminated 2 more recruits who struggled with the rapid decision-making requirements. The ability to process complex information quickly while under pressure was essential for combat snipers, who often had only brief opportunities to engage important targets. Elena excelled at these rapid engagement scenarios, consistently achieving hits on targets that appeared for only a few seconds at extreme ranges. Her target acquisition time was among the fastest in the class, despite the complex calculations required for accurate long-range shooting. Harrison noticed that Elena's success in rapid engagement scenarios came from her ability to pre-calculate multiple range and environmental scenarios, allowing her to quickly select the appropriate solution when targets appeared. Her methodical approach to training had prepared her for situations that caught other recruits off guard. By the end of the psychological testing phase, only 5 recruits remained in the program. Elena had not only survived the elimination process, but had emerged as one of the top performers. Despite her obvious physical limitations and quiet demeanor that had initially suggested weakness, the other surviving recruits had begun to treat Elena with genuine respect, recognizing that her unusual capabilities made her a formidable teammate, despite her unassuming appearance. Conversations about shooting techniques now included Elena as a valued contributor rather than someone to be protected or accommodated. Harrison found himself completely reconsidering his initial assessment of Elena's potential. Her combination of exceptional marksmanship skills, superior psychological resilience, and tactical intelligence made her one of the most promising sniper candidates he had encountered in years of training. However, Harrison still harbored concerns about Elena's physical capabilities in certain operational scenarios. While her shooting skills were undeniable, real sniper missions often required extended periods of physical exertion, equipment carrying, and movement through challenging terrain. The next phase of training would test these remaining concerns through advanced field exercises that combined all the elements of sniper operations: physical demands, marksmanship challenges, tactical decision-making, and psychological pressure in realistic mission scenarios. Harrison decided to design a special evaluation exercise that would push Elena to her absolute limits, testing whether her exceptional shooting skills could overcome her physical limitations in operational conditions that demanded both capabilities equally. He was beginning to suspect that Elena might possess rare talents that made her suitable for specialized sniper missions where precision mattered more than physical strength. But he needed to verify this hypothesis through rigorous testing before making any final recommendations about her future assignments. The transformation in how Elena was perceived by her classmates and instructors had been gradual but dramatic. The recruit who had been dismissed as unsuitable for sniper training was now recognized as potentially exceptional, though questions remained about the full scope of her operational capabilities. The final evaluation exercise was Harrison's masterpiece, designed to test every aspect of sniper capability in the most challenging scenario possible. The exercise would require solo operations over 5 days, with each remaining recruit responsible for completing a series of increasingly difficult shooting challenges while operating independently. In hostile territory, Elena received her mission briefing along with the other 4 surviving candidates. Each would be inserted at different locations within a 50-square-mile training area, equipped with standard sniper gear and minimal supplies. Their objectives included engaging multiple targets at distances up to 3,000 meters, conducting reconnaissance missions, and extracting to designated pickup points while avoiding capture by opposing forces. The insertion took place before dawn on a cold Monday morning. Elena was dropped at the most remote location, requiring her to cover the greatest distance while carrying her full equipment load. Harrison had deliberately made her mission the most physically demanding, wanting to see if her exceptional shooting skills could compensate for obvious physical limitations. Elena's equipment included a precision rifle system, weighing nearly 20 pounds, ammunition, optical devices, survival gear, and communication equipment. The total weight approached 60 pounds, a significant burden for someone of her small stature. Harrison monitored her initial progress through GPS tracking, expecting her to fall behind schedule immediately. Instead, Elena demonstrated remarkable efficiency in her movement techniques. Rather than struggling with the heavy load, she had developed methods for distributing weight effectively and moving through terrain that minimized energy expenditure. Her pace was steady rather than fast, but she maintained consistent progress toward her first objective. The first shooting challenge required engaging targets at progressively longer distances, starting at 1,500 meters and extending to 2,500 meters. The targets were positioned in a mountain valley where wind conditions were notoriously unpredictable, creating some of the most challenging shooting conditions possible. Elena established her shooting position on a ridge overlooking the target area, spending considerable time studying the terrain and environmental conditions. Her preparation was even more meticulous than usual, recognizing that these extreme distances would test the limits of her equipment and abilities. Her first shot at 1,500 meters was a clean hit, followed by successful engagements at 1,800 and 2,100 meters. When she attempted the 2,500-meter target, Elena faced the greatest shooting challenge of her training career. At this extreme distance, bullet flight time exceeded 3 seconds, allowing wind conditions to change significantly during the projectile's journey to the target. Traditional shooting methods became inadequate, requiring intuitive understanding of ballistics and environmental factors that few snipers ever develop. Elena's first attempt at 2,500 meters missed the target entirely, the bullet impacting in the dirt several feet away. Rather than becoming frustrated, she carefully observed the miss, gathering information about actual conditions versus her calculations. Her second shot struck the edge of the target, a remarkable improvement that demonstrated her ability to make rapid adjustments at extreme ranges. Her third shot achieved a solid hit near the target center, proving that she could achieve precision shooting at distances that challenged the capabilities of her equipment. Harrison monitored Elena's progress from the command post, watching through high-powered optics as she achieved shots that impressed even experienced instructors. Her ability to engage targets accurately at such extreme distances placed her among the most skilled marksmen he had ever trained. The second day of the exercise introduced mobile targets and time constraints designed to simulate real combat conditions where snipers had limited opportunities to engage important objectives. Targets appeared briefly at various locations, requiring rapid target acquisition and precise first-shot hits. Elena's performance on mobile targets was exceptional. Her ability to quickly calculate range and environmental factors allowed her to achieve hits on targets that other recruits missed entirely. Her methodical training approach had prepared her for scenarios that required both speed and precision under pressure. On the third day, weather conditions deteriorated significantly. Heavy rain and strong winds created shooting conditions that would challenge even combat veterans. Several recruits requested early termination of the exercise, finding the conditions too severe for effective operations. Elena continued the exercise despite the harsh weather, achieving successful target engagements that demonstrated remarkable adaptability to changing conditions. Her shots remained accurate even when visibility was reduced and wind patterns became chaotic. Harrison realized he was witnessing something exceptional. Elena's combination of technical skill, mental resilience, and adaptability under adverse conditions exceeded anything he had encountered in decades of training snipers. The fourth day included the most challenging shooting scenario of the entire exercise. A target at 3,000 meters in mountainous terrain, with significant elevation differences between shooting position and target. This distance approached the maximum effective range of the rifle system, requiring perfect technique and ideal conditions for success. Elena spent hours preparing for this shot, taking detailed measurements of atmospheric conditions, studying wind patterns, and calculating the complex ballistics required for such an extreme engagement. Her preparation was so thorough that other instructors gathered to observe the attempt, When Elena finally fired, the bullet's flight time exceeded 4 seconds. Everyone waited in tense silence as the projectile traveled the enormous distance to the target. Through high-powered spotting scopes, observers watched as the bullet struck within the target's scoring rings, achieving a hit at a distance that few snipers ever attempt in training. The successful 3,000-meter shot created a buzz of excitement among the training staff. Elena had achieved something remarkable, demonstrating shooting capability that placed her among the most elite marksmen in military history. On the final day of the exercise, Elena completed her extraction to the designated pickup point ahead of schedule, despite having covered more distance and faced more challenging objectives than the other recruits. Her mission had been a complete success, accomplished with a level of proficiency that exceeded all expectations. When all recruits were debriefed after the exercise, Elena's performance statistics were extraordinary. She had achieved the highest accuracy rates, engaged targets at the longest distances, and completed her mission objectives. Under the most challenging conditions, Harrison found himself in the unusual position of having to completely revise his assessment of a recruit he had initially considered unsuitable for sniper training. Elena had not only proven her capabilities but had demonstrated skills that suggested exceptional potential for specialized operations requiring extreme precision shooting. Graduation day arrived with unusual anticipation among the training staff. Word had spread throughout the academy about Elena's exceptional performance during the final exercise, particularly her successful engagement at 3,000 meters. Harrison found himself curious about Elena's background, realizing he had never investigated what experiences might have prepared her for such remarkable shooting ability. The graduation ceremony was held in the academy's main auditorium, with family members and military officials attending, to recognize the achievement of completing one of the most demanding sniper training programs in the world. Of the original 24 recruits, only 4 had successfully completed all phases of training. Elena sat quietly among the graduates, her small frame still seeming out of place among the other successful candidates. Her family had traveled from a small farming community in Montana, and Harrison noticed her father wore a Vietnam veteran's cap, suggesting military service in the family background. During individual recognition ceremonies, each graduate received their sniper qualification badge and had their achievements highlighted for the attending audience. When Elena's turn came, Harrison found himself struggling to summarize her unusual journey through the training program. Recruit Vasquez demonstrated exceptional marksmanship abilities throughout training, Harrison announced to the audience. Her performance at extreme ranges exceeded program standards and established new benchmarks for precision shooting under adverse conditions. As Elena approached the podium to receive her qualification badge, Harrison noticed something that made him pause. Pinned to her dress uniform, barely visible among the standard military decorations, was a small badge he had not seen before. The badge displayed crossed rifles with numeric designation 3200 DAMUs beneath them. Harrison's breath caught as he recognized what he was seeing. It was a civilian competitive shooting badge, awarded only to marksmen who had achieved verified hits at distances of 3,200 meters or greater in sanctioned competitions. Elena stood at attention as Harrison pinned the sniper qualification badge to her uniform. As he did so, he leaned closer and spoke quietly. "Vasquez, that badge on your uniform. Where did you earn that?" Elena's response was characteristically brief. "Montana State Long Range Championship, sir. 3 years running." Harrison felt a mixture of amazement and embarrassment as he realized what had happened. Elena had been one of the nation's top competitive long-range shooters before entering military service. Her exceptional performance during training hadn't been a surprise development of talent, but rather the application of skills she had already mastered to a level few professional snipers ever achieved. After the graduation ceremony, Harrison approached Elena's father, Tom Vasquez, wanting to understand how a small-town farm girl had developed such extraordinary shooting capabilities. Tom smiled as he explained Elena's background. "Started teaching her to shoot when she was 8 years old. We had coyote problems on the ranch, and she showed natural talent for long-range shooting. By the time she was 16, she was competing in state championships and winning consistently." Harrison learned that Elena had grown up on a large cattle ranch, where long-range shooting was a practical necessity. Protecting livestock from predators required accurate shots at distances that most people considered impossible. Elena had been making shots beyond 1,000 meters since her teenage years. She paid for college with prize money from shooting competitions, Tom continued, won the National Civilian Long-Range Championship twice before deciding to join the military. Said she wanted to serve her country and learn military applications for her shooting skills. Harrison realized he had made a fundamental error in assessment. His focus on physical capabilities and military bearing had blinded him to Elena's extraordinary background in precision shooting. She had been one of the nation's premier marksmen before training even began. Elena's quiet demeanor suddenly made sense. She hadn't been intimidated by the training challenges because she had already mastered skills that exceeded what the program required. Her methodical approach reflected years of competitive shooting experience, where precision and consistency determined success. The other graduates gathered around Elena as details of her background emerged. Chen, her partner during field exercises, laughed as he realized why Elena had been so effective during their team operations. "You've been shooting at distances we considered extreme since you were a teenager, haven't you?" Elena nodded modestly. "Different equipment and conditions than I was used to, but the fundamental principles are the same. I wanted to learn military applications and tactical employment of precision shooting." Harrison found himself reconsidering every aspect of Elena's training performance. Her consistent accuracy, calm demeanor under pressure, and ability to excel at extreme distances all reflected extensive prior experience rather than natural talent developed during training. That evening, Harrison pulled Elena's complete service record, discovering additional information that explained her exceptional capabilities. Her civilian shooting achievements included multiple national records, victories in international competitions, and recognition as one of the most accomplished long-range marksmen in competitive shooting history. Elena had intentionally downplayed her background during training, wanting to be evaluated on her military potential rather than civilian achievements. Her goal had been to learn tactical applications for skills she had already mastered, while proving her ability to adapt those skills to military requirements. Harrison realized that Elena represented something extremely rare in military service, a recruit whose civilian expertise exceeded military training standards before formal instruction even began. Her challenge hadn't been learning to shoot accurately at long range, but rather adapting those existing skills to military tactics and operational requirements. The following week, Elena received orders assigning her to a specialized military unit that conducted precision shooting operations requiring capabilities at the extreme limits of equipment and human ability. Her combination of proven civilian expertise and completed military training made her uniquely qualified for missions that few snipers could successfully accomplish. As Elena prepared to leave the academy for her new assignment, Harrison reflected on the lessons learned from training someone with such unusual capabilities. His initial focus on physical attributes and traditional military bearing had nearly caused him to overlook one of the most gifted marksmen he had ever encountered. Elena's 200-meter badge served as a permanent reminder that exceptional capability can come in unexpected packages. Her quiet confidence and unassuming appearance had concealed skills that exceeded the achievements of soldiers who looked far more impressive in traditional military evaluations. Harrison made changes to his evaluation procedures following Elena's graduation, ensuring that future assessments would identify hidden expertise that recruits might bring from civilian backgrounds. Elena's success had taught him that the most capable snipers aren't always those who fit conventional expectations about military appearance and bearing. Years later, Harrison would cite Elena's training experience as one of the most important lessons of his career, demonstrating that true expertise in precision shooting transcends physical limitations and traditional military stereotypes. Her 200-meter badge had told a story that he had initially failed to read, nearly causing him to overlook exceptional talent that had been hiding in plain sight.